Every day, millions of people do the same thing. They grab their keys, they say something to their dog, maybe they say goodbye, maybe they just leave, and they close the door. And on the other side of that door, something happens that they never see. Most people assume it's simple. The dog waits, maybe it sleeps, maybe it finds a sock, and then you come back and it acts like you've been gone for 40 years and everyone moves on. But researchers have spent the last 2 decades putting dogs in brain scanners, measuring their cortisol, filming them alone in rooms. And what they found is that the story on the other side of that door is nothing like what most people picture. It's stranger, more specific, and in some ways harder to sit with once you know it. Let's start with the first 60 seconds, because that's where the science gets immediately uncomfortable. The moment you leave, your dog doesn't just notice you're gone. Its entire stress response activates. Cortisol, the same hormone that floods your system when something goes wrong, spikes in your dog's bloodstream within minutes of the door closing. Its heart rate increases. In studies using motion tracking cameras, most dogs spend the first few minutes after departure in a state researchers describe as active distress, pacing, whining, returning repeatedly to the door, sniffing the exact spot where you were last standing. Not because they are confused about where you went, because they know exactly where you went and they can't follow. Here's what people usually say at this point. Dogs do this because they're pack animals. They don't like being alone. It's instinct. And that's true as far as it goes, but it completely misses what the research shows about what your dog is specifically reacting to, because it isn't responding to aloneness in the abstract. It's responding to you. In 2015, researchers at Emory University in Atlanta conducted one of the most significant studies ever run on the canine brain. They trained dogs to lie still inside an MRI scanner. No sedation, just trained, and then measured which brain regions activated in response to different stimuli. They exposed the dogs to 5 different scents: a stranger, a familiar person who wasn't their owner, another dog they didn't know, a dog they did know, and their owner. One scent produced a response unlike anything else. The owner's scent activated the caudate nucleus, a region deep in the brain associated with anticipation, reward, and positive emotional experience. The same region that lights up in humans when they see someone they love. Not food, not a familiar dog, you. There is a specific region of your dog's brain that activates for you, and almost nothing else produces the same response. You are not just a person your dog lives with. You are neurologically encoded into it as a source of something it wants. And when you leave, that source disappears. What happens in the hours that follow depends on the dog. Some settle. Cortisol levels drop back toward baseline after the first wave of distress, particularly in dogs who have a predictable routine, dogs who have learned that leaving always ends in returning. Those dogs have built what researchers call a return expectation. They don't know what time it is in any human sense, but they have learned the pattern. You leave, you come back. The leaving is survivable. For these dogs, the hours in between look like waiting, genuinely calm waiting, not suffering. But for other dogs, the cortisol never fully comes back down. They pace longer. They destructive chew not out of boredom, but because chewing produces calming neurochemicals. It's self-medication. They bark at sounds they'd normally ignore because their threat threshold drops when they're alone without you. They urinate inside not because they forgot their training, but because cortisol suppresses the physical control that normally keeps them from doing it. Every behavior that owners come home to and interpret as spite or misbehavior is, in the science, the output of a brain running an anxiety response with no one there to regulate it. There is no spite. There is only stress. Now, here's the part that changes how you see the reunion. Because you come home and the dog erupts, spinning, jumping, crying, unable to contain itself. And most people read that as simple happiness. And it is happiness, but it's also something else. It's relief. Measurable neurochemical relief. The moment you walk through the door, your dog's cortisol levels begin dropping. Its heart rate stabilizes. The reward regions of its brain, the same caudate nucleus that lit up for your scent in the scanner, activate again. What looks like excitement is also a nervous system returning to baseline after hours of low-grade distress. The dog isn't just glad to see you, it's recovering. And here's what makes that harder to explain away. Researchers have tested whether dogs distinguish between different lengths of absence, whether a dog reacts differently to someone who was gone for 30 minutes versus 2 hours versus the full day. The answer is yes. The longer the absence, the more intense the reunion greeting. The cortisol spike on the return is proportional to how long the system was running without its anchor. Your dog is not just tracking that you left, it is tracking how long you have been gone. It is measuring your absence. The question nobody can fully answer yet is what the dog experiences during the time in between. We can measure the cortisol. We can track the behavior. We can watch the brain regions activate. But what we cannot do is get inside the dog's experience of that time and know whether there is something it feels like to be a dog alone in a quiet house, waiting. Some researchers think the question is unanswerable, that we're asking a human question about a non-human experience. Others think the behavioral and neurochemical evidence points clearly enough. An animal running a sustained stress response with elevated cortisol, with self-soothing behaviors, with a measurably intense reaction to the return of a specific individual, is an animal that is experiencing something. We may not be able to name what it feels like, but the argument that it feels like nothing is the one that requires the most evidence, and that evidence doesn't exist. There's one more thing the research shows that most people don't know. When you say goodbye to your dog before you leave, when you crouch down and talk to it and make a small moment of it, the cortisol spike on departure is measurably lower than when you just walk out. The acknowledgement doesn't eliminate the stress, but it reduces it. Your dog doesn't understand the words, but it understands the gesture. It understands that you saw it before you left, that you knew it was there. And somehow, in whatever way a dog processes that kind of thing, that matters. Every day you leave, every day the door closes, and something happens on the other side of it that you don't see. Your dog's brain lights up with your absence the same way it lights up with your presence. Because to a dog, you are not just where it lives. You are the thing the whole system organizes itself around, and it is counting the minutes until you come back.